All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of Blue Leadership with your host, Dennis Nair. Dennis is a 26-year law enforcement veteran and retired chief from the state of New York. He's also a proud graduate of the 240th session of the FBI National Academy and the 61st session of the FBI LEDA Command Institute. The Blue Leadership video podcast is brought to you by the nationally ranked Master of Science in Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership program at the University of San Diego. You can learn more about the LEPSL program at criminaljustice.sandiego.edu. And with that, I'll kick things over to Dennis to introduce our featured guest. Thanks.
Sarah, thank you, and great to be back, episode 19. And today's guest is Chief Sheryl Victorian of the Waco, Texas Police Department. Chief Victorian spent 27 years with Houston, Texas Police Department, rising up through the ranks all the way up to assistant chief. She spent time in homicide, internal affairs, training, basically you name it, she's done it. She's been at the Waco, Texas Police Department as the chief for the last year and a half. And one of the things that is amazing is not only is she a practitioner, but from an academic point of view, not only does she have her bachelor's degree and her master's degree, but she also has her doctoral degree in justice administration. And without further ado, Chief Victorian, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that really wanted us to hope you'd have the time is for you to share some of your experiences on the concept of relational policing. And it's a topic that some people may understand a little bit about, but not fully. And you are a clear expert in that field. And I guess for the first question, can you just tell us a little bit what is relational policing?
Sure. Relational policing is a concept that was actually developed by one of my former bosses, Chief Art Acevedo, when he came to Houston in November of 2016. He put out a video to his troops or to us. And he started talking about these concepts of transparency and respect and engagement and building emotional capital and accountability, building trust. And um, I would hear him from time to time as we're out in the community talking. He'd talk about this concept of relational policing and what it takes to build trust. And I went to him and I was like, "Hey, Chief," I said, "I think we have something here. I'd like to brand this." And so he was like, "Okay, go for it." So I got with one of our guys at the Houston Police Department, and he came up with a design to actually brand the concept of relational policing or the philosophy of relational policing that included the tenets so that we could start using it more frequently. It's just a fundamental way for us to build trust in our communities. It's not nothing anybody has not heard of before, but I just think that the combination of these tenets in policing are so effective for building trust. First, we have transparency. We have to be clear and transparent with our community, showing them the things we can do, what we cannot do. When we can talk about policy or tactics, we need to talk about that. Of course, being respectful, every contact is an opportunity for us to build trust. I don't care if we're talking with a suspect or a victim or a reportee. We need to take every opportunity as a time to build relationships. And then that first E is engagement. We have to take time to engage because it's easier for us to love up close. I know a lot of people always say it's hard to hate up close, right? When we're engaged and showing people that we are human too, and talking about the things that we're doing and sharing with our community and meeting them before they need us, it builds that emotional capital, which is that second E. Because we know that essentially something will happen in the field of law enforcement where we would have to make withdrawals from our community. And if we built that emotional capital in our communities gives us the benefit of the doubt, which is what we ask for until we can correct any issues that we may have. And then that A is accountability. We need to make sure that we're holding our teams accountable for their actions, right? The acronym for relational policing spells the word treat. And I didn't say that before, but it's TREEAT, right? And that last T is trust. So transparency, respect, engagement, building emotional capital, accountability builds that last T, which is trust.
I love it. And I really like how you just framed it in a positive way, with that saying, it's hard to hate up close, but you just took that and turned it around that it's easy to love up close and really to create that reservoir of trust, because really without that foundation, nothing else matters. You can have, as you said, all the best tactics and training and kudos as a department, but if the community that you serve doesn't believe it or doesn't trust you, it's meaningless.
Exactly. And for years we've talked about community policing. And essentially, community policing is getting with the community and identifying issues and being able to problem solve, right? But even to get to that point, you have to build a relationship with the community in order to sit down together and come up with solutions and strategies for addressing problems in our neighborhood. So that relationship is very, very key.
I fully agree. And I'm here on the East Coast, you're in Texas, but the challenges are all the same, and our friends and partners on the West Coast and wherever, same. And that really brings me to my next question. What are some of the challenges that you and your agency are dealing with right now?
So I've been with the Waco Police Department for the last year and a half, and of course, just like everybody else, we're being asked to do more with less. But I think that before I got here, we were short-staffed, and we were operating with one officer in a beat, with the exception of between the hours of 9 p.m. and 1 p.m. And I think that as I brought this to light and working in minimal staffing and how much of an officer safety issue it is and how we can't best serve our community with not enough officers on the street, it just kind of brought light to what was really going on. And our council heard us and they allowed us to apply for the COPS grant. We got 12 officers from that. And then this last budget cycle, they approved us for another 12 officers. So I think it also helped too with our relational policing efforts and that engagement and us being a face in the community and not just the police department with the tower standing in the middle of the community, but engaging with our community and actually becoming a part of our community, because it's our citizens, right, that really make those decisions in council that have that influence. And so that community support that we have gained, I think has put us in a good position. But staffing, but we have to fill those positions, right? So staffing is really an issue with us. Lately, we've been given some phenomenal recruiting and hiring incentives, right, to try to fill those positions with the best possible candidates. But even though the pool has been bigger, it also shrinks when once you get the candidates in, and some of them don't meet the requirements, some of them don't follow through. But I will tell you this: I believe that the candidates that we're getting in law enforcement now or in policing now are the candidates that understand that we need to go in a different direction and want to be a part of that change. So we're down in staffing with the added 24 positions. It would be about 30, but ordinarily we'd be down about 8 right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a really true statement in that people who are willing to step into a profession that's seen such a negative spotlight, broadly speaking, and they really know the challenges because they've been front and center in the media and just everywhere across the country. People know the challenges, and those at this point wanting to step in, I think that speaks volumes. And like you said, the challenge for a chief such as yourself, who's building relationships and forward thinking, that you're also a gatekeeper because you have to make sure that those people coming in are suitable, that they can do this ever challenging job, and that they could reflect the qualities that you as a chief want and that the profession needs. So I think your challenges are definitely similar to many other agencies across our country.
Yeah, and we've been very fortunate. Today we learned that we're working in partnership with a local agency, one of our community stakeholders, Prosper Waco. We learned today that we were given a grant for the Change Matters, the Community Violence Intervention and Prevention Initiative. So that was a part of my strategic plan earlier this year when we saw a slight increase in murders in our city. And so it's just came full circle today. So it's so good. Now that things are really quiet, violent crime is down. Overall crime in the city of Waco is down 6%, which I couldn't be more proud. But now is the time actually to start implementing that program before we actually need it, not in the middle of a crisis, right? So I was very pleased to learn that Prosper Waco was able to get that grant so we could start working together and getting some true messengers or violence interrupters out in our community to help us continue to reduce crime in Waco.
That is awesome, and congratulations. And one of my follow-ups was going to be if you've noticed in the year and a half that you've been the chief there, some of the great benefits of your efforts toward relational policing. And I think you just said it. Your violent crime is down 6%, which is amazing. Is there anything else that you've noticed, maybe anecdotally too?
So we do. I get a lot of feedback from our community that they love seeing our officers out and about and engaging, and they love seeing the police department host different events, right, where we're engaging our kids and having positive interactions with our kids. One of my goals when I got here was to increase the number of positive interactions that we had with our community, and we do that through trunk or treat that we have coming up, right? We did a back to school bash. This year, we actually partnered with one of the local hospitals who did their medical mission at home and gave away over 1,500 backpacks, but filled with school supplies. But we couldn't do that without the help and support of our community partners, right? And with the amount of support that they give us and the number of community partners that support us, I think that that's an indication right there that the work that we're doing is working. So, yeah, just the feedback, the reduction in crime, our community partner support. And yeah, that's to me, that's an indication of us going in the right direction.
And I love it just because you're weaving it into everything you do, and it's just kind of it's not a box to check. It's not like, okay, we did some relational policing. It's the philosophy, which I think was what brings such a great value to it. And with that, when you first brought that concept, did you have resistance, or did you have buy-in, or did it take a little bit of work for the officers to see the value?
I think that there was a lack of understanding of what relational policing was initially when I got here. But then when we started demonstrating it, and I'm out in the community a lot, and when we started getting the feedback from the community, and one thing that I always tell our community members, you guys always tell me when something's go wrong. You're gonna always tell me when we messed up. But I need you to tell me when we're doing stuff that's right too. Our officers need to hear that, especially now. And you'd be surprised. I get emails about the smallest thing, accommodating our officers or recognizing our officers, and then send it through that officer's chain, right? And for that officer to see that that community member saw that they did a good job. And most of the responses I get was, Chief, I was just doing my job, which does my heart really, really good. But you don't know the impact that it's had on somebody else's life, right? So there was a lack of understanding of what it was at first. And I even had teammates going, man, she's always out in the community. It's like, yeah. And I had to get them to understand that we were building this emotional capital in our communities in order to get stuff done, in order to have a force multiplier and build that trust and get the cooperation that we need when we need to solve these tough crimes, right? And now I'm pretty sure that they get it. I had a commander who stood in front of a group of yeah, the politicians and other local leaders in the area, and he took lead on a project, and I just let him have it, and he just spit it out verbatim from the heart, and it was genuine, and I literally had tears in my eyes, like they get it. And so, but yeah, I think we're the culture of our organization is fully understanding relational policing now, even though there was a lack of understanding initially
Yeah,
to start with.
and that's great. And something you said earlier in one of the prior questions was that you said you don't want to wait till a crisis before you start thinking of how do you build these relationships. And that's so true. One of the sayings that I always have is that the time to fix a leaking roof is not when it's raining. And that plan of building that reservoir, building that trust. And for the listeners and viewers, they should know that you police a population of over 135,000 people. You're over 100 square miles. So this is a large area that you still manage to get those citizens to say, Chief, your officers did a great job with this. I think that speaks volumes.
Yes, thank you so much. And yeah, it's just been fantastic since I've been here. I tell my team all the time, I had a good job with HPD. I love the Houston Police Department, and I thought I'd just sell off into the sunset as an assistant chief until this opportunity presented itself. And there hasn't been one day that's gone by that I thought, oh my goodness, what did I do? This is a great community. We have a great police department. Um, our team is ready to move forward and do things differently and represent our city well. And I'm excited about that, and excited to see where our department is going to go.
I'm excited hearing it just from a distance here. And one of the things that, because separate agencies, we're all part of this profession that just needs to find an equilibrium and gain that respect and trust that so many work so diligently toward. And so for the others, people listening, if an agency really isn't fully involved to the degree they can be in relational policing, what are some things you can suggest that can start them on that path to achieving some of the successes that you're achieving?
So, first of all, we need to change our language and change our mindset. And what I mean by that, people always say, oh, these are challenging times in law enforcement. And I think it's just a time of opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to be proactive in changing the narrative. One, by getting to the root of community problems and having those tough conversations with our community, identifying those members of our team who are passionate about relational policing or the tenets of relational policing, and getting out and connecting with our community and doing some perspective taking and understanding any historical traumas that may have happened in our different neighborhoods and the communities that we serve. Making sure our officers understand that, right, so that they don't take things personal, but start to try to garner an understanding on how to build a relationship from those traumas. And then, of course, and I mentioned it just a minute ago, but having those critical conversations in our communities, those tough conversations that bring out issues that we may not have even known existed, and then some that may, and then partnering with our community to make sure that we address those issues, right? But it's going to start from the top. It's going to start with leadership, and we have to be demonstrative of these things. I'm not just talking about relational policing. I'm not just telling my team to go out and engage. I'm actually going out there. I was a barista yesterday at Starbucks. Actually going out there and connecting. When we have events, it's on my calendar so that I can go out there and participate in the events, and the community can see me and engage and talk and know that I'm approachable. And feel free sending me emails, asking questions, wanting to be a part of our citizens police academies and getting their kids involved in our Explorer program. But that's what I would challenge other agencies to do, to first lead from the front. First, I don't want to say buy into the concept of relational policing, but understand the concepts and the tenets of relational policing and building trust, right? And then going out there and doing it and using those tenets and just doing it and connecting with their communities.
Yeah, during my times as chief, those were some of the best times when I was out there at community events or coffee with a cop or a parade or whatever, because there they could see the face of their department. And I just think all the things you're doing is connecting, and the stakeholders. It's not always just the business owners and the clergy and the prominent people. It's every person who lives there or commutes there, and they all have a voice in wanting to be safe. And I think you'll never know as a chief who you've impacted, that someone may say something negative and they could say, no, that's not this department. They're different.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And that's what I try to tell my team. When we're talking about building that emotional capital, and then something happens in another agency that impacts law enforcement totally, like the murder of George Floyd, for instance, and all police officers were painted with a broad brush. But that's an opportunity for our community to say, nope, not Waco PD. That's not what our police department does, right? And then in the event something does happen in our department, that we've built so much emotional capital in our neighborhood, in our communities, that we can make some withdrawals, and they can go, you know what, give Chief Victorian an opportunity to correct that, to hold somebody accountable, to change policy, or to make whatever tough decisions that we need to make to correct our mistakes. Because inevitably we're going to all make mistakes. And yeah, so that's very, very important.
Yeah, and I agree. When you're dealing with human nature and volatile situations, you could have the best policies, the best leadership style. Ultimately, things won't always go right. And like you said, that capital of trust that you've built, you don't want to have to draw from it, but you will. And when you have that there, that, like you said, you could get the benefit of the doubt. Um, I think anyone would be crazy not to want to truly invest into the value of relational policing early and often.
Yes, sir. I totally agree.
From a leadership, so this is leadership, and you're very unique in the fact that a lot of times we have faculty and alumni, and you actually had a connection because you were brought in as a guest for one of our programs of the master's program in law enforcement and public safety leadership to discuss relational policing. And it's very easy from this conversation to see exactly why. But what I want to ask you from a leadership perspective, what is a book or some sort of medium that you would recommend for someone, a book or something to watch that could help them in their styles?
Okay, so I have two things. I'm glad you asked that question. First, just as we use the tenets of relational policing to build trust outside of our organization, the same tenets will help us build trust inside of our organizations, right? When we're talking about being transparent and honest with our team, showing them the same level of respect we expect them to show our community, right? Engaging and being available and not taking a freight elevator so we don't run into anybody, right? And then building that emotional capital for our team so when we're asking them for those hard tasks that they just do it, right? And then, of course, accountability when it's fair and consistent across the board. I just think that all of that internally builds trust as well. But one of the books that I picked up recently, I'm not done reading it, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it, is Trust and Inspire by Stephen Covey. Um, in his book, he talks about unleashing the potential in others and not being a selfish leader, but elevating and inspiring others and just leading differently. And I think that that's what we have to do in today's age. If we're not growing and developing and moving forward in policing and staying in the same place, then this may not be the profession for you. We always have to be growing and moving in the field of law enforcement because if not, we're going to get left behind.
For sure. And that name is familiar. Is he also the author of From Good to Great?
No, he has the seven habits of effective. Wait, what is 7 habits of effective people? He also did. There's another book, not Before Trust and Inspire. Yeah, he wrote another book, and then he has the 8th habit, the 7 habits of highly effective people, the 8th habit, Trust and Inspire, and he has another book. I can't think of the name of it. Something to Trust.
Well, suffice it to say, he's an expert in the field.
Yes.
Of leadership. That's awesome. And like you said, I really feel it's about inspiring to make others do more and want to carry out the mission, because at 2 or 3 in the morning when you're not there and they're at a call for service, the inspiration you've provided through that leadership is what's going to, become the image of the department. So I think that's awesome. Chief, as we close out, this has been super, super valuable. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything you would want the listeners and viewers to know also to close out on relational policing, how we get from where we want to be as a profession to from where we are? Anything you want to say?
I think that we need to remove ourselves and our agencies from our visions and goals in policing and start thinking about it from a global perspective. The work that we're doing right now has an impact on all of policing, not just Sheryl as a leader, not just the Waco Police Department, but as a police profession. And that's what we need to be working towards, changing the narrative and changing the perception of policing, because this is a noble job. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else, right? And I think that we need to fight to defend that, right? And show people that we are not this broad, what they're painting with a broad brush, right? So in order to do that, relational policing, I think, is a tool to bridge that gap and humanize the badge and show people that we are the noble profession that we have always been, and that those few bad apples, just as they're allowed in any other profession, will not define the profession of policing.
What an amazing way to close out this podcast. I know Sarah's going to come in to officially do it, but Chief, that is all super valuable. It's things that I'm sure that even if an agency is doing something, I guarantee they're going to add some new components to it. And many thanks from the University of San Diego and the LEPSL program, which works super hard to build leaders. And what you just did is going to be an asset toward that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you both so much for your time today. And we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to meet the law enforcement heroes and leaders who are part of the MS LEPSL family. If you would like to watch previous episodes of Blue Leadership, you can find them on the video tab of your Facebook page or by searching USD Blue Leadership on YouTube. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.